Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, hello. We're a little bit late today. I had some technical difficulties. The app had got disconnected from my Facebook, so I had to figure that out. Hi, everybody. So happy Tuesday. We are here live today with Bev. She's going to be telling us about some of her experiences here. I'm just going to be asking her some questions because I know a lot of you are moving, so it's kind of helpful for you to hear from someone who's actually here, who's gone through the process, just to see whatever words of wisdom, advice they may have. And I think it's just nice to get a good wide spectrum of, experiences here because everyone has different experiences depending on where they're living and just their different life situations coming down here. So, Bev, I'm just going to ask you to tell us a bit about your story and how you ended up in Costa Rica and anything that you'd like to share with us in that aspect.
Well, it's kind of a confusing story even to myself because it was never on my radar. I mean, coming to Costa Rica was always on my radar. But to come down there and actually stay was never anything I even imagined. For several years, my husband and I would go to Hawaii every year during February. We both have quite a bit of arthritis, and we like to go someplace warm and let the sea bathe our bones in the cold weather. And in 2015, I started looking for a place to stay in 2016 in February, and all of the places that we had preferred were already booked in Hawaii. So we sat down and we talked about it, and I said, maybe we've always talked about Costa Rica, or maybe this is our year to go. Mm-hmm. And so he said, well, let's go ahead and research it, see what you find out. I'm not really comfortable going there because I don't know the language, and it's a little bit different. So I started researching, and my husband and I are both, we own an Airbnb here in California, and so we love Airbnb. And so the first thing I did was start searching for Airbnbs in Costa Rica without really a clue of where we wanted to go or what. And this little place popped up in Samara. And when it popped up, as I was reading through it, it said it was associated with Intercultura, which is a Spanish language and cultural immersion program on the beach in Samara. So I went to him and I said, what do you think about this? And he goes, that kind of sounds cool. We could swim and take a few classes and fill up our time. So I kind of contacted the school and started doing it on that end before I actually secured any lodging. And one of the first things they asked me is, would you like to do a homestay? And I'm like, what's that? And she said, well, that would be like you would actually live with a Costa Rican family for the time that you were there. So my husband and I both jumped at that opportunity because we felt like, we would be giving back to the community. And so we did. We went down and we spent a month with this couple that's our age, no kids in the house, but we just immediately bonded to them. They didn't speak any English and we didn't speak any Spanish, but our hearts connected. It was just this very, very raw connection that is hard to even explain. Mm-hmm. So we stayed with them for a month. We actually were only signed up for Intercultura for the 3 weeks, and then we were going to take a week and go visit other places in Costa Rica. And when we talked about leaving a week early, she started crying and saying, oh, no, don't go. Is it something I said? Did I feed you something you didn't like? I mean, so we ended up staying an extra week with them and never saw any other part of Costa Rica other than a few little things with the school. Anyway, long story short, we came home, and I've always been interested in living abroad, teaching abroad, or working abroad in some way. And so I signed up and took an online TEFL course that took me 14 weeks to complete. And when I got done with it, I was supposed to do some practicum hours, and I couldn't find a practicum site because it was the middle of summer and there just wasn't anything available here in California. The schools were closed and we live fairly rural. So I decided to go back, and I went back on a one-way ticket because I didn't really know how long it was going to take me to do my practicum. And I stayed with Marlene and Jose again, and I went on a one-way ticket. I got involved with this small little private school in Samara, and I fell in love. And the next thing I knew, they were telling me that they wanted me to stay, and I stayed 11 months.
Wow.
I came home and my husband came down, but I actually ended up staying and living with this woman for another 11 months. By that time, we pretty much could communicate.
Yeah. Oh, what a great experience.
Yeah. So, and I'm very involved with the school. So as you can see, I mean, I'm not in Costa Rica right now. I'm back in California. But I came back July because it looked like the schools weren't going to reopen at all, and I was teaching online anyway. So, and I have tickets to come, both my husband and I have tickets to come down again in November. And we'll stay for 2 months, and I'll stay probably until at least April or May, or I mean, March or April. And then I'll come home again for a while. So I kind of have the best of both worlds because I have this beautiful home here. It's harder for him because his mother's aging and he really needs to be closer to her. And we do have a bed and breakfast here. So we can close it part of the year, but we don't like to close it all the time. So that's my story.
All right. So you guys are a bit back and forth then.
Yes. But I have a house full time down there. I do have a house.
Okay.
So,
alrighty.
Yeah.
I had, hold on, sorry. Okay, I had accidentally not, just to catch some people up, so whoever's in the Facebook group, I had accidentally not added you into the live until like a few minutes ago. So for people who are just popping in, Bev was just telling us about her story here in Costa Rica and about how her and her husband, you know, used to go to Hawaii, and then they couldn't go to Hawaii that year, so they did. They booked a place in Costa Rica, ended up spending a lot of time with a family, a really immersive experience. So actually, I'd like to hear more about that. Could you tell me like what that experience was like, not speaking Spanish, coming to live with a Costa Rican family? What are some of the, I don't know, what were some of the really beautiful things that came out of that? Or how did you guys communicate? And how did you feel I don't know, what do you feel are some of the cultural things that you learned or that you saw and that you observed being with them and living with them?
So I think for me, I grew up in a family where there was never a stranger in our house. We were always, my mother had one of those revolving kitchen doors where people were coming and going, and we lived on a ranch and people would come and camp, and, you know, so I kind of grew up with that. So it wasn't all of that strange for me other than the communication part. Mm-hmm. But I also, my father had a stroke and lived for 12 years without being able to speak. So I've really pretty much in touch with body, you know, with nonverbal communication. And I think that helped us. It was a little different for my husband because my husband did not come from that kind of a family. And I think he felt a little bit intimidated by it maybe at the beginning, but, you know, he's been living with me for so many years. We've been married 37 years. So he settled right in and he was totally comfortable. I have to say that by the end of that 11 months of living with the same lady for, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and, you know, there was a couple of times that I wouldn't be feeling too well. I remember one night, you know, I started coughing in my sleep, and immediately, you know, there was a knock on my door, and in she comes, and she's got, you know, she's got all of these herbal remedies, and she's got tea for me, and I mean, it was like having a mother. I mean, even though she's probably my age, it was, you know, so I guess for me, the communication with the Tican people is not really about language. It's about our connection to their hearts. And I have to, if there's one thing that I can emphasize is the Tecan people are incredibly gracious community. They're very loving. They are, Costa Rica doesn't have a military, and they're very peace loving. And if they have a problem with you, they'll let you know, but they'll let you know in such a loving and caring way that or they'll just be passively aggressive and ignore you. but I think that's probably the biggest thing that's impressed me. The woman that runs the school that I work at, I am so impressed with who she is. And there's not a child that enters her school that doesn't feel the love just coming straight off of her soul every time they walk in the door. She had a habit of, when the kids came through the gate every morning, of course this has changed with COVID, but they got a big hug. And
Aww.
that just is huge. We had 2-year-olds all the way to 18-year-olds, and everybody got a hug. And even when they were in trouble, they still got a hug before they left her office. So, yeah.
It's a great environment.
Yeah.
So then when did you guys actually, I guess, move down here? How many years ago was this?
So that was in 2016, and I stayed with her from 2016 all the way through to 2017, and came back. Then a friend of mine, actually I live in a little community of 300 people here in the Sierras of California. And a friend of mine, or a neighbor of mine, had been talking about moving down there for quite a few years. So she came for a visit, and she and I ended up renting a house together for 17, 18, into 18. And in 18, we both decided that we kind of would prefer a place of our own. And another friend of mine told me, oh, so-and-so's building some little casitas, you ought to go over and talk to him. And so that's when I got my house. And I don't own it, I lease it, but I'm a 5-minute walk to town or to the beach. And it was brand new when I moved in. And for me, it's small. It's 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. And I've kind of made it my own. I have my own furniture, and I own, I've taken lots of suitcases of things down. So I have all my own kitchen stuff. Yeah. And I just love it there. I mean, I totally 100% love it there. And it's actually cheaper for me to lease this per month, even when I'm not there, than it would be if I was to just go down from November until April every year, because the high season, this particular house would double, if not triple, in cost.
Yeah.
And I have an agreement that I can sublet it, as long as I don't do like Airbnb, where I'm actually making more money off of it. So that and I love it. I mean, I can get on the plane tomorrow as long as I have, my wallet and my passport and my phone. I really don't need to take anything back and forth. Everything's there, and I leave it there. So
and that's
great neighbors, super safe, incredible neighborhood.
And that's in Samara. So you've always been living in Samara?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Samara? Like, what's the town like? What do you like about it? Like, what kind of fit lifestyle, what person might kind of fit in and enjoy that place?
So Samara is virtually untouched by the big resorts. There is no Marriott, there is no Hilton, there is no, there are no big resorts there. It's there are hotels and restaurants, and quite a few of them, but they're all family owned and family operated. And I took my granddaughter down within, I don't know, maybe the first year I was down there, maybe within the first 2 years I was down there. And she said, "Grandma, do you know everybody in this town?" And I said, "Pretty much," because it was kind of off season. And I said, "Pretty much." And she said, I said, but you will too by the end of the week. And by
Yeah,
the
right.
end of the
Dominical.
she really kind of knew everybody. She was like, oh yeah, grandma, because she would, you know, she was older and she would go to the beach and go surfing and stuff. And she'd come back and she'd go, oh yeah, so-and-so was having dinner with so-and-so at the restaurant. And, you know, they said to say hi and all of this stuff. So it's very, very inclusive community rather than exclusive. You know, I've been to some of the other communities, and you know, especially when you get up in around the airport. A lot of those, you know, I remember walking on the beach at Playa de Coco and with a friend, and she said, you know, well, we can't go over there because that's, you know, that's the French community, and we can't go over there because that's the German community, and we can't go over here. And we're walking down the beach, and she said, okay, we can't go any further because this is the Tikans beach. And I just looked at her and said, but it's all the Tikans beach. It all belongs to them. We're all just guests here. And I was really kind of, it was, I mean, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but it was a different feeling of, you know, it's not uncommon for me to go to dinner with a group of the moms from the school, and our school is international. And maybe there's 15 of us at dinner, and we're from all different nationalities. Mm-hmm. And we kind of communicate in Spanish because that's the one language that kind of everybody knows. But it's not an exclusive, it's an inclusive community. So, yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting to know. Samara kind of reminds me a little bit of Dominical. It's a small town, you know, Dominical, South Pacific. Samara is up in Guanajuato for people that aren't aware. But yeah, Dominical is very like two road. Everyone knows everybody, inclusive. Right. Like everybody interacts, Ticos and people from other countries. It's a nice place. No resorts. It's nice.
Yeah, and the minute the virus hit and people were, you know, everything was closing down, the whole community came together. And I mean, they've been serving, you know, 150 lunches a day for, you know, months now, just on donations. And a lot of that spirit of community. So yeah.
I thought, like, just during this time, I've seen a lot of the community pulling together, and there's a lot of communities pulling together right now too in Costa Rica. Right. Other things that are going on, but I really do love. I see, like, when the Costa Ricans start to pass a hard time, I've just observed them over this time and what's going on right now. Protests, they're just uniting, which is impressive, and it's really wonderful just to see everyone band together, unite, and it's really great.
There's no talk about personal rights because everything's about everybody else's, the community as a whole. Yeah. And it, you know, so, yeah. You got any more?
No, I mean, it just makes me feel good. I feel like if Costa Rica ever does pass through something larger in the future, I feel like it seems to be people's go-to just to band together. And that's right. I like that. That makes me feel comfortable because we're all going to pass through hard things. Every country can pass through something, you know, we never know. So it's just nice that I feel like we're in a place where people, their automatic instinct is like band together, you know, unite.
Right.
Together.
Right. Yeah. And there's been times, you know, because I'm down there alone, but a majority of the time when my husband's here. And if I don't show up for something, you know, somebody will send somebody by to see what's, you know, it's not a, oh, well, that's her business if she doesn't show up. It's more like, well, wait a minute. We don't care if she doesn't show up, but we want to know that she's okay. And for him, my husband, that's huge. That's huge because you know, I'm 65. There's, you know, I mean, anything could happen. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
what have been some of your, I guess, challenges? Let's say some challenges maybe that you faced personally in adjusting to Costa Rica, because I like for people to be aware it's not a perfect place, and that's okay. But I like people to be aware of some of the common challenges that others may face while adjusting here, so that they can kind of out for themselves.
Well, my biggest challenge is the fact that my husband and I are on two different, a long ways away, but that, that's totally different. That doesn't have anything to do with this. I would say, gosh, I don't even know what the challenges are, because I've kind of learned that I'm there, and the challenges are all part of the learning process. So kind of don't look at challenges as a negative, more as a positive. I think that there's times when the heat does get oppressive, and but I've got a good group of friends, and maybe we'll rent a car and just go up to Arenal for a weekend and just get out of it for a while. I also invested in an air conditioner for my bedroom just so I could sleep better through the night during those really hot months. I can say that it's not really a challenge for me, but I see it as being a challenge for a lot of people. And I'm kind of stood back and observed. And some people will say to me, well, I don't really have any Tican friends. I don't really know anybody in the community that's from Costa Rica. Mm. And, all of my friends are from the States or whatever. And I think that, as with Playa de Coco or any of those other places, there are gathering spots that tend to be more geared towards one community rather than another. Maybe an Italian restaurant has a group of Italian people that come in every morning and to have coffee together, and they speak Italian. Mm-hmm. And we definitely have, a sports bar in Samara where if you're an expat from the United States, you can go there and have breakfast every morning and drink coffee, or you can meet in the evenings and watch, it's a sports bar, so you can watch the football games or whatever with the people from your own country. And I think that that's great on one hand, but on the other hand, I think that you're going to end up meeting the people that you share the most in common with. And I feel as though part of the richness of living in Costa Rica is not, I could have stayed in California and gone to Denny's every Tuesday morning for coffee and breakfast and did the same thing. So that's just not something that it's not that I won't go there. I really do go there on occasion, but it's not something I seek out. I enjoy actually going to the small soda and having breakfast. And I actually do it alone a lot, because oftentimes if I'm there alone, then I'm taking up a table and other people will come in and sit down to the table, and maybe we can all share our stories together. Uh-huh. And it also helps, many of these restaurants are owned by people that are expats, so it helps the community a little bit better. So I don't know that that's really a challenge, but I think it's something that we can all be aware of.
Yeah, I think if people want to come and integrate and get to know the locals, and you do have to put that effort in and put yourself in those positions to get to know those people. You know, if that's something that's going to be, you can come here, I guess, in some places and not do that. But if you really do want to have an authentic experience, and you need to put yourself out there and be willing to do that,
And it expands your views. And I'm not talking just about Ticos. I like going to an Italian restaurant and sitting and talking to the Italian expats too. So, or the French or the, German or whoever. So I think and that's something, once again, I think I've talked about that, that Samara seems to be really open to. Like you never feel like, oh God, I'm someplace I shouldn't be right now. Mm-hmm. So, or at least I haven't experienced that.
What are some of your top tips that you would give to someone who's moving here? And then I have some people who have asked a few questions. So if anybody has any questions for Bev, you can drop them in. But what would be some of, I guess, your top tips? So this is, kind of geared towards people who are going to be moving here. What would you say to them? Someone who's saying, I think I want to move to Costa Rica, or I'm going to move in a few months.
Okay. My biggest thing is remember you're a guest in our country.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you've bought property, maybe the neighborhood doesn't handle their trash the way that you do back in the States, but that's the way they handle their trash. And don't come in and immediately expect that, lights be put in and, garbage needs to be put into some sort of a dumpster or container, and dogs need to be, spayed and neutered or whatever, because that can feel a little offensive to your neighbors who have maybe lived in their houses for 20 or 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to keep in mind that it's more important that I adjust to living in their country than that they adjust their country to make it more comfortable for me to live there. That I think is really an incredibly important thing. The spay and neuter clinics are huge right now in Samara, and it's not that I don't see a need from them, but for some people, for some Tekans, they're like, why are you doing this to my dog? There's kind of an attitude like, what are you thinking? Why do you, because it's just not in their frame of mind. So I'm not saying that there shouldn't be changes, but you have to be careful about how you approach those changes and not force change on them.
Yeah, don't blow right into town and all of a sudden start trying to enact all this change, especially without settling in, getting to know the culture, getting to know the community, getting to know the people, just
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think anyone would like that. Imagine someone just blowing into your neighborhood and just, oh, you're not doing this right.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the way we've done things. You just got here. Like, yeah, I think that's a huge tip. Yeah, not everything's done perfect. There is no perfect way to do things, but if you can just embrace that things are different and just,
Yeah, I don't know the name of the big black birds that get into the garbage. But there's these great big, I call them like a vulture, but they're they're the big black birds, and they'll get into the garbage. And sometimes people are just appalled at that. Whereas from the Costa Rican standpoint, that's all part of the food chain.
Yeah, they're like, oh, no.
They're like, what is the big deal? Yeah, we're done with it. Why don't the birds get a chance to have a little bit of it before it gets hauled off to the garbage dump? So yeah, it's just the ability to change and adapt your thinking away from, what we're used to here in the States. And, sometimes you're just not going to be able to get the same products in the grocery store. And that's just simply because they don't live the same lifestyle we do. So you were talking about challenges. Like, I have to say, one of the things I miss the most is good cheese.
Oh yeah, I miss man. If someone could send me some like queso blanco dip from some Tex-Mex restaurant, I'd be a really happy person.
Yeah,
that white cheese dip.
Yeah. No, there's certain food stuff. I mean, it's getting better, and I think now that Price Club or Price Mart or whatever is up by the airport in Liberia, I think I'll have a little better selection. But my suitcases tend to be full of things like nuts and dried fruits and spices that I can't get there.
Yeah, you get creative. You learned either, okay, I can live without this, or I'm going to get creative in how I'm going to get it.
Yeah, or make it myself.
Yeah, definitely. Or find alternate ingredients, or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to look at some of the questions that people had here. There's a few. I don't want this to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate you sharing with us your experience. All right. Someone asked, any news on the proposed changes for residency and import taxes? That is a no. We don't have any new news on that, but that'll definitely be something that I'll keep people updated on. How is Bev teaching online? Is she part of a company or is she working on her own? That was from Matt on YouTube.
Okay. So I am a volunteer at Moraeus in Samara. Okay. And I typically go down in November when school starts, and I stay until April usually. this year I got down there, and it's very difficult. The school is actually it's run by a Tican woman, okay, but it's accredited through a school district in Florida, so it actually has U.S. standards. And so all of the teachers are either hired out of England, Canada, or the U.S.
Okay.
And hard for her to get teachers down there that she knows are going to last. And we had an incident last year where she hired a woman. The woman came down, and it was obvious from day one that she was not a good fit. Just was not a good fit. And within a week, she slapped a kid.
Oh, geez.
And so she had to be sent back. I mean, she had to be let go, which meant she had to go back to the United States. So because I was there as a volunteer, I took over the class, and I taught the class up until the Christmas break. And it was 5th and 6th grade. That's a really hard age group. They're, my kids were incredibly great kids, but there's a lot of emotional stuff and that goes on in that age group. So there was a young woman that was down there who had been going to the Temple Academy in Samara, and her friend had been hired as the kindergarten teacher at the school.
Okay.
And so she applied for the job, and she got it, and she took over January 1st. And they were young, just fresh out of college, and there was a lot of partying going on. Okay. And I'm not trying to be judgmental, but the kids were paying the price. And as soon as the pandemic hit and the school closed, they went home. They just flat out went home. So here's this group of kids. Pardon?
It's a transient country. People do come. Yeah. They don't stay. Sometimes they don't stay long, especially,
right.
It can be hard I find, especially schools can be hard to find somebody who's really going to be committed to the country and committed to the school for the long haul.
Right.
But there can be so many factors that influence whether someone's going to stay or not.
Absolutely. So, but here's this group of kids who are now faced with yet another turnover in teaching. And so at that point, I just stepped in and said, you know what, I'll take it over, because we couldn't get any new teachers in. Yeah. This is all back in March. We didn't know if the borders were going to be closed for a week, a month, a year. We just really didn't know. And I just couldn't. And the kids and I are bonded. I mean, I've been with these kids since they were little. They know me, and they trust me, and I'm in and out of their homes, and I know their parents, and that's just kind of the way it is. So I took over, and of course we were online because the school was closed, and that's how I ended up teaching online.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Al asks, can Bev mention one thing she loves about Costa Rica that the U.S. does not have? So what do you love about Costa Rica that you don't see in the United States, if there's anything?
Well, no, there's a lot of things, but the thing that resonates the most with me right now is that spirit of community. Like, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of divisiveness in the States right now, and I don't see it in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I just don't see. I mean, people have different beliefs, but they're not condemned for those beliefs.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
and he also asked, is there one thing that you miss in the U.S. that you miss when you're in Costa Rica? But we kind of covered that, some of that, maybe the access to certain foods. And for me, it's food too.
Yeah, and my home, and, my husband, and, there's certain things that I miss. To tell you the truth, it's gotten to the point where really right now, I really miss my kids down there. I mean, I'm very, very involved in their lives, and I can be, we talk about 5th and 6th grade, and I mean, these are the kind of kids that in the United States wouldn't give you the time of day, but, I will have, a 14-year-old even and come to me and say, Miss Bob, I really need to talk to you. I actually have a background in psychology, was trained as a marriage and family therapist, and I'm also a life coach, and I do biofeedback for stress reduction and ADHD, that kind of thing. And so the kids know that, and sometimes, it's just that they're having an issue with somebody at school, or they broke up with a boyfriend or whatever. And to them, they just really kind of need somebody that's neutral, that can just kind of listen, and we'll all go for a walk on the beach, or they'll come by my house and just sit and chat. And so, these are not kids that I just saw, between school hours. These were kids that were part of my community. And so I really do miss the kids. Right now I experience a little bit more because my life is so incredibly full down there. When I come home, it's full, but it's full of not, it's full of like friends and things like that. But down there, there's a purpose. There's a strong purpose. In fact, through the pandemic, I put it out there that I would, talk with anybody that was experiencing stress. And I was busy. I was between teaching and that, I was busy until 8 o'clock every night. And I really connected with the community. I did more coaching, okay, a lot of people got stuck there. If you were from Europe and you came on at the wrong time on vacation, there were people that got stuck there and couldn't get home, and they had family and friends that were dying at home, and they just couldn't get a flight out. It was tough. And those people needed somebody to talk to. For the Tican community, there were a lot of people that went from 4 jobs to support their families to nothing in a week. And they don't have savings accounts. They don't have any way of falling back on that. So, so I opened my doors to that, and I had one young Tican man that was experiencing really severe panic attacks, and we were able to work through that with the biofeedback. So, pretty interesting that I was there at the time that I was there, and so yeah.
It sounds like just what an amazing example of how you've been serving the community down there. Actually today, so I've made a how to move to Costa Rica video series. Today was number 2, and I talk about lifestyle. So I do go into, people really imagining the life, that the kind of relationships they want to create. And one of the points was, how do you want to contribute to your community? So this is something I want people to think about when they're coming down, because I feel like we each have unique gifts, and just think about, so it's just really neat that you shared this story today, because I feel like that fits in perfectly. You have these unique gifts, and you found a way to really contribute to the community and make the community that you're living in better down in Costa Rica. And I can only imagine they're all so excited for you to return, as I know you're excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. The other thing is I one of the things I did a few years ago is I started for the high school class. I started in a class. Well, it's not really class. It's a class session once a week on entrepreneurship, because for the kids who came down there as infants, we've got kids that are in high school that came down there as infants. They have no memory of what their life was back in Canada or back in the States or back in Germany. And for them to stay there, they're not citizens. They're not going to have the opportunity to work unless they're an entrepreneur and they start their own business. And for the Tican community, there's a lot of jobs, and you can get a really good education, but it's not, if they really want to get ahead in life, they may have to be entrepreneurs. So the kids actually started their own little magnet business, and they take pictures of really cool things on the beach, and then they write a copy of it. I have one right here. Anyway, and then they sell these pictures, or we order them from the United States, and they buy them for 37 cents a piece, and they're selling them on the beach for $4 a piece.
Oh,
So,
ways to empower the youth and have them thinking creatively and.
So yeah, and I love, okay, so this is an example of something where things went wrong. This used to have a saying on it, but they spelled it wrong and they ordered 100 of them from the United States. And then they got 100 of them and it was spelled wrong. And they said, we can't sell these because it's a reflection of who we are. Mm-hmm. And so they ended up cutting the words off the bottom. But, you know, I love it when things go wrong. I don't really teach the class. I don't know anything about entrepreneurship, but I let them work through things. And then, you know, they'll say, well, what do you think, Miss Bev? And I'll say, what do you guys decide? Or, well, do you have any ideas? And I might say, well, have you thought about this possibility? So as a result, you know, they've got a little bit of extra money that they've been able to invest in some things that, you know, some outings and things that they wouldn't normally have. And so the reason I'm telling you about all of this, and then last year, there is a woman that is a liaison between universities in the United States and programs in Costa Rica, and she brought down a team from Salisbury University in Maryland, and they all came and did a one-day seminar with our kids on entrepreneurship. Oh. So this was pretty cool. You know, it's kind of like gotten a little bit of word has gotten out. The reason I talk about this is because it doesn't matter who comes to the community. If they have a skill or they have a mindset or they just even have an idea as an entrepreneur, you can always volunteer in a school and, you know, agree to teach something that, you know, that it gives the kids a little bit of a head start. And you start working with people's children and you'd be surprised at how much you're embraced within a community. That's I didn't amazing. Do that. That was not what I set out to do. That was just, I mean, I have a love for kids and that's what I wanted to do. But that was like the side effect that I didn't think about. We have a woman down in Samara who was at one time a curator for Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., and she teaches art. Wow. 3 hours every Monday, and the kids love it. Cool. They love it. So she does art history, she does music of the period that they're studying, and they just love it.
Good.
So, yeah.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear about some positive impacts in the community, and maybe for someone who's moving, you know, if you have gifts after you get settled in, if you think that there's something you can share with those around you that, you know, could really potentially change someone's life or just, I don't know, provide a new experience, you know, that's,
mm-hmm. you know. And don't be surprised if you take something to them that you're going to help them with and you find out that you're learning way more than than you ever taught.
Great way to integrate into the community. And I mean, really amazing way, just by giving back to it. You know, you're going to be enriched by the experience, probably more than they will, you know?
Right. Super.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate everything that you've shared, and it's been such a pleasure to hear about everything that you've done. I didn't know all this, so this is just
thank you for inviting me. Yeah. And I look forward to meeting you in person someday.
Definitely. Yeah. I will be up in Samara. I have some clients that will be moving up there, so I will be up in the area. I guess they're going to be coming in November, so
okay, good.
I'll definitely be making a trip up there. I've been traveling quite a bit, but not right now as things are at a standstill. But yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to sign off here, and thanks everybody for joining. We'll be live next week as long as I don't have scheduling conflicts. I try to be once a week, but you know. And also this week I have my How to Move to Costa Rica video series coming out. So the first video came out yesterday. It's on my YouTube channel. Second video just came out today, which I talk about lifestyle. It's like good video to get out your notebook and really start kind of dreaming about, really thinking about how you want your life to be here. So I think it's a total of 7 videos. So it's going to be coming out each day. So I hope you all enjoy that. Thank you again, Bev.
Thank you.
And I hope you have a great day. It's a nice rainy day here in Costa Rica. I got my little sweatshirt on and I'm all cozy with my coffee. So I'm gonna sign off here, but thanks again.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.